It's make or break for the voluntary euthanasia bill tonight, with MPs due to vote on whether the country should vote on the issue at next year's election. The end-of-life choice members bill, in the name of ACT leader David Seymour, would allow adults with a terminal illness to request a lethal injection to end their lives. It's faced a vocal and vigorous campaign from opponents and is now nearing its final stage, with the vote on the referendum option expected by the end of the night. Here's our political editor, Jane Patterson.
The bill has been through many twists and turns, concerted efforts by opponents to defeat it at each stage, and fundamental changes such as limiting it to just those with a terminal illness. The next political hurdle is the referendum question, which would require majority support from the public at the 2020 election before it could take effect. Mr Seymour, who's always been confident he has a clear majority of New Zealanders on his side, says this is a significant part of the bill.
Look, I wouldn't say that passing the referendum clause is critical to the bill, but it will be extremely challenging to get the numbers without New Zealand's first support. So I'm urging my colleagues in Parliament to vote to add a referendum clause to this bill.
Earlier this week, the Labour leader and Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said she would prefer not to have a referendum, but her vote will be based on what's needed to get the bill through.
My personal view is I will support what will be required to allow the bill to continue or to come into effect. So there's a few different dynamics around where that mean the numbers might fall. So I'll be assessing that as we go.
Nationals leader Simon Bridges opposes the bill itself and will vote the same way on the referendum.
I think it's for members of Parliament to make up their mind on these things rather than kick them for touch, if you like, to a referendum.
New Zealand First has given its support to previous votes in return for holding a referendum. Back in June, MP Tracy Martin said if the referendum bid failed, it would become a conscience vote for each of the New Zealand First MPs, and that her leader Winston Peters had told his caucus they would never be asked to vote against their conscience. But today Mr Peters would not be drawn on what would happen in the event a referendum is voted down.
You're going to have a vote later on today. We've got no comment to make at any time before or that event happens. We've told you all for months what we're going to do. We're not going to change our view. We're going to go in there and have the vote, and we'll be very happy with the outcome.
So, if that doesn't happen, given your comments that you made, will you whip?
We don't do hypotheticals.
Will you whip the caucus, or will you vote?
Sorry, we don't do hypotheticals. Right? We just do facts.
These MPs are from both sides of the House, but are united in their opposition to the law change itself and to holding a referendum.
Parliament should not abdicate its responsibility in this matter. It's a very delicate and nuanced topic, so I'll be voting against a referendum in tonight's vote.
That's why we're elected as members of Parliament, to make those decisions, and I think we've had plenty of time to debate that in the House, and Select Committee have heard point of views from the public, so it's time to make a decision on this.
We're elected to do a job. We've been looking at the issues for around 12 months now, and I feel like the issues are very complex, and people have elected us to do their job, and it's up to us to do it.
If the committee's stage votes are all wrapped up tonight, the final vote is likely to be held on November the 13th.
And our political editor, Jane Patterson, joins us now from Parliament. Jane, can you just talk us through why this referendum proposal is so key to the bill?
Basically, through the earlier stages of the bill, New Zealand First struck a deal with the bill's sponsor, David Seymour, and that was that they would have a referendum on the bill, or that he would push for a referendum and encourage other supporters to do that. Now, the vote will be held tonight, and it has been quite comfortable up until now. So the second reading vote was 71 votes in favour and 50 opposed, but that really is expected to narrow down. So with the referendum, if there is a failed proposal, we really are not sure which way New Zealand First will go. As you heard Mr Peters say, he wasn't saying whether the whole caucus and its 9 votes would vote against it, or whether MPs who do still support the bill would be free to carry on their conscience. Now, as that bill approaches third reading, those 9 votes could become crucial and could make the difference between the bill's passage or not.
So what are you expecting tonight? Are you expecting to see a sort of kind of filibustering on the referendum option, you know, people talking the clock down?
Of course, we have seen that through the stages of the bill, but this debate is at the very end of the committee stage, which is where they go through part by part or clause by clause, and it's very limited tonight. All they're debating is the title and the commencement date, and the commencement date is where the referendum question will be put. Now, some people might remember the Super City legislation when opponents to the bill literally tabled thousands of SOPs or amendments to the bill to try to stop that, but the rules have basically been changed since then so that the chair in the House can say, after probably 4, 5 or 6 attempts to change that part, that they can say, look, you're wasting Parliament's time. They can move on and call the vote. So we're not expecting that kind of filibustering. We do expect that we will get there sometime tonight.
Do you know about what time, Jane, we could expect a result?
It's difficult to tell just because of the nature of the debate in terms of how many people will be able to talk. One strategy that supporters of the bill have taken so far this afternoon is they are not taking calls in Parliament, so really we've heard predominantly from opponents. I understand it's probably going to be after the dinner break, so Parliament will rise between 6 and 7:30 and then they'll come back, and that's expected when the referendum vote will have. But we're here in Parliament, the bells aren't going, so they haven't actually called that vote yet. It is a personal vote too, so MPs will come through this lobby into the House when the bells ring, and they physically go through the eyes and the nose doors to make those votes. So that in itself can take some time, and then those votes are all counted individually.
Thanks, Jane. That's our political editor, Jane Patterson, joining us from Parliament.